Hello everyone, welcome to another video, and in today's video I want to unpack specifically the top 1% of business owners' mindset. What analogy can we use to better understand it, and how can we adapt our mindset accordingly in order to help us run a better business? So just before we get started, I just want to say that if you enjoy marketing and business content, then I want to let you know that it will mean the world to me if you like and subscribe, especially if you want to be notified about future episodes. Cool. So without any further ado, let's just dive into today's video. So recently I bought a book called Be Water, My Friend, which is by the author Shannon Lee. And she is the daughter of Bruce Lee. I don't know if you guys can remember the martial artist. It might be before some people's time. I know myself, when I grew up, I was about 6, 7, 8, used to be a huge Bruce Lee fan, but I might be a little bit older than some of the people watching, so not everybody might remember Bruce Lee. But Bruce Lee was just an insane martial artist, and he became a famous actor because of it. But what a lot of people don't know is that he was actually quite the philosopher, and his daughter wanted to portray this side of him that nobody else really knew, because he was a very wise man. And she wrote the book called Be Water, My Friend, which is basically a lot of her dad's philosophies and life teachings that she condensed into a book. And I bought the book a few weeks ago, and I just really enjoyed it. And I think a lot of those philosophies are applicable to running a business. But what is more interesting to me is that the more I started understanding these philosophies and how it's applicable to business, the more I started realizing that a lot of people in my network who are extremely successful, multimillionaires, billionaires, people who are literally at the top of their business performance peak, if you will, these people actually naturally, whether it's consciously or unconsciously, have a lot of these traits. And that's why I thought it would be a good idea to make this video. So as you can tell from the name of the book, it's actually called Be Water, My Friend. And what it boils down to is that if you really want to be successful in life and endure this challenge that we have as a society, as a human being in itself, just the challenges of dealing with everyday life. If you really want to come out on top, regardless of what you might see as success, then you're going to have to adapt a specific way of thinking. And the analogy that is used in the book is water. Now, I know what you're thinking. What the hell has water got to do with being a successful business owner? Also, be successful at anything that you're really passionate about. And obviously, that's why I'm creating this video. So let's unpack it quickly. So in the beginning of the book, there's a short little story about Bruce Lee on how he basically got banned for a week from the dojo where he was learning martial arts, because he used to be someone who was very aggressive and impatient, and he didn't always listen to the teacher because he was always pushing himself and wanted to skip certain teachings and levels in order to get to breaking bricks with his head and stuff like that. So one day while he was training, he was very impatient, and his teacher basically said, listen, I'm going to ban you for a week because you need to go think about a lot of different things, and I want you to think about what it's like to be water. Because essentially, the teacher has been explaining to him that he needs to become more like water, and he couldn't really understand what it truly meant. Even though his sensei tried to explain it to him, he just didn't really get it. So his sensei could see that he was getting impatient and he was getting a bit aggressive. So he said, listen, you're not going to come back for another week. I want you to take a break. You're not allowed to practice anything got to do with martial arts, not here, not at home. You need to take a week break and just think about what it's like to be water. Now, during this week, obviously, he didn't stick to the commitment of not practicing, so he did practice by himself. But the one day he took a little rowing boat and went onto the ocean, close to the shore, and he was just sitting there thinking. So as he was sitting on the water, he had a lot of built-in frustration. So he decided to lean over the boat, and he started punching the water with all his energy, all of his frustration, trying to express his anger. And he just threw one jab after the other with as much power and strength as he had. And obviously he tired, and he sat back in the boat, and he was just thinking, sitting there going, sheesh, I literally just expressed and took out all my energy and frustrations on the water, but yet the water around me is completely unfazed. The water didn't cry, it took the beating, and it just went back to its normal state. The water was calm, and obviously he punched the water around him, and there was a bit of volatility in the water and obviously a few splashes, but then after that it went back to its normal state, just as if nothing has happened. And that's when his mind truly clicked and started to understand the analogy of water, and he sat back and really started to think about all the traits of water and how it's applicable to life and challenges. So the first trait that he understood about water is that it is just extremely adaptable. I mean, if you think about it, he was punching the water and it kind of like absorbed all the punches, just adapted to the energy and the frustration that he was executing. And he thought about it. He's like, you can basically take water, punch it, spray it. You can pour it into a jug that's round, pour it into a glass that's long and tall. But at the end of the day, the water chemistry stays exactly the same. And no matter what you do, it just goes back to a normal, still state. And in essence, he's thought to himself that water is extremely adaptable. And that is the first thing in business that we need to understand as business owners as well. And that's what the top 1% also know, is that in business you have to be extremely adaptable, not just as a business but also as a leader and as a human being. You see, the thing is, if you're not adaptable, then the little bit of success that you have right now might not actually last very long. Or if you have a lot of success, it might be short-lived, purely because of the fact that the only constant in life, and especially in business, is change. You see, if you're not adaptable to the market needs and wants, then you're going to get left behind, the same way companies like Blockbuster did, MySpace did, Motorola, for example. All of these companies were at the pinnacle of their industries at some point, but they didn't adapt quick enough, and therefore they got left behind. And it's exactly the same for you too. So in order to be successful in business, you have to keep your finger on the pulse of knowing what's happening in your industry, and you need to consciously ask yourself, is there a need to adapt or not? And if there is, how are we going to do it as quickly and swiftly as possible? The second trait that he noticed about water is that it was just absolutely resilient. If you think about it, like, it took one punch after the other consistently without really bitching or moaning or complaining or crying about it. It literally just took the punches and it basically afterwards went back to its normal state. It was able to endure the hardships that was basically being bestowed upon it, the challenges that life throws at you. Whether you are trying to be an athlete or a business owner, there's always going to be challenges, and you need to be resilient if you want to see those challenges through, if you want to conquer them, if you want to get through over those hurdles. And I think that is why resilience is such an important trait. If you're not resilient, then the challenges are going to knock you on your behind, and you're going to fall out of the race, and you're going to give up, essentially. Or you might just run out of gas or steam and never really see the goals and desires that you've set out for yourself into fruition. Right, so the third trait that water has, that top 1% of businesses also have, is just a flexible mind. They've got a level of mental flexibility that most other people just don't have or can't even comprehend. And what I mean with mental flexibility is really to be able to see everything from all the different point of views that are available. Like I said before, water is extremely flexible because you can pour it in any retainer and the chemistry of the water will always be the same. That level of flexibility is so crucial, especially when it comes to your mental state. Because think about it, if you have a rigid mentality, then it means that the moment something happens that you do not prefer, you are going to get emotionally triggered. And when you get emotionally triggered, you become reactive, and that prevents you from responding consciously and strategically. So if something happens in business that you don't prefer, you're going to react to it and most likely do things in a certain way that you shouldn't be doing, or there might be better ways of doing it, but you just didn't have the time to actually use your mental flexibility in order to see the event from all the different points of views, so that you can collectively take all of the information and then construct the best response in accordance to the event. So another way to look at it is that, this remote over here, imagine this is a statue, right? And I was standing right in front of the statue. Now, the only thing that I will see is the front of the statue. Now, this statue can resemble an event in your life. Now, if you're standing in front of the event like this, you can only see the front of it. And at the end of the day, if you think about it, you will never really truly be able to appreciate the whole statue if you just stay in front of it. So what do people do? You walk around the statue and you try to admire the whole of the statue, which is looking at it from every single point of view. So you have to do a complete 360 around the statue to truly appreciate it. And I think it's the same with events in our lives, that we have to look at it from an holistic perspective, a 360, if you will, from every single possible point of view, so that you can then take all the data that you've collected because of that exercise and then construct the best way forward for yourself. You respond now that you have all the most objective facts available, and now you're constructing a response that will be constructive for you and the business moving forward. So the whole point of mental flexibility is to remove emotion from the equation and use your logic and patience essentially in order to look at the event from all points of view, which is a mental exercise, right? And that then allows you, like I said, to construct the best response possible. So the fourth trait that top 1% of business owners have, and that Water also have, is patience. Now, a lot of business owners who are successful are going to tell you that they don't have a lot of patience, but the reality is they know how to exercise it. So even though they might be naturally impatient human beings, they know that they have to be patient in order for things to manifest and crystallize in their reality, and it will take time. So even though they say they don't have, naturally, they actually are able to supersede their own characteristic by actually forcing themselves to exercise patience. And I think that is a very valuable skill, because water is just naturally patient if you think about it. If we have to use the analogy of a dam, right, all the water is in a fixed location, and as it rains, the water obviously builds up. So they have floodgates to, keep the water in, and they use those same floodgates to let water out when it's necessary. So if you look at water in a dam where the floodgates are closed, what's interesting is the water just lies there patiently. It rains, water accumulates, it rains a little bit more, water accumulates, and it just does its thing. It just sits there patiently, waiting, grinding, if you will, on its goals and its desires on a daily basis without getting impatient that the results have to manifest. And when the time is right, the floodgates open and the water comes rushing out essentially. And it's almost like the water patiently waited for the opportunity to pounce. And it was just doing its thing on a daily basis. And I think that is one trait a lot of successful business owners have, and that we can all live up to essentially, is that patience of just doing what we need to do on a daily basis without getting frustrated about the actual results of the day and how it might be perceived on surface level. Because in essence, we can't see all the things that are happening around us at all times. Our senses can't perceive it. But we get so frustrated with ourselves when we don't see things going the way that we want it to. And therefore, sometimes that starts to contaminate the effort of the next day and the next week and the next month. But if you can just ignore the lack of perceived results and just continue doing your thing on a daily basis, at some point there will be an opportunity that will be perfectly aligned for all the skills that you've been stacking for a period of time, and you will be able to capitalize on that the same way the floodgates open and the water comes rushing out. The water is constantly ready to rush out. But it can't do that if the gates are closed. So the moment the gates are open, the water just instantly reacts, and it flows with immense strength and power out of the dam. And that's essentially how we need to look at it too. Be patient, do what you need to do on a daily basis, forget about the lack of perceived results, and the moment there's an opportunity, go after it with everything that you have. Right, so the last trait that I think that top 1% of business owners have, that water also has, is the fact that water can be extremely soft, beautiful, and gentle. If you think about it, when you go on a hike, for example, and we were in the Drakensberg recently, and I went on a hike, was tired and hot, and we found a little waterfall coming out of the mountain, and standing under it, I just experienced this level of joy and ecstasy, because the water was just falling on my skin, and it was soft and gentle, relaxing and refreshing. And that's one trait that water has. But at the same time, water can also be ruthless if you think about how it acts when there is a flood or a tsunami, because then it literally takes out everything that's in its way. So in essence, water can be gentle but can also be extremely strong and powerful. And I believe that is a trait that a lot of business owners have, is they are gentle at their core, they're soft, and they want to do good, and they want to help people, and they want to see people succeed. They want to see the business succeed, and they want to do good, and they want to do it with love. But at the same time, people can take advantage of that, whether it's colleagues, whether it is suppliers, whether it is competitors. And at the end of the day, you have to find the balance between being soft and gentle, but also very candid and assertive and specific when it comes to the moves that you want to make as a business owner. just thinking about being candid and assertive, that is the number one trait that a leader needs to have, but it has to be balanced with love and care and appreciation at the same time. And I believe it's that paradox that essentially creates an amazing leader. And in the same way, if you think about water, it's got this gentle, soft trait, but it's also very impactful and powerful when it needs to be. And I think that's an analogy that we can use to understand how we need to act as business owners and as leaders, or wherever you find yourself, just as a human being. At the end of the day, is that knowing that you can be soft, loving, and caring to other people, but at the same time, you can have boundaries, you can be assertive, you can be candid. If you do so, obviously, respectfully and with authenticity. So in a nutshell, it's really just finding the balance between being loving and caring and also being specific, assertive, and impactful with whatever you're doing on a daily basis. And there you have it. The book covers a lot more than this, but this is my takeaway so far and how I think it applies to the business owners that I've met who are extremely successful, and also us aspiring to live up to these specific traits. I really believe that if we adapt this mentality, that life will become a little bit easier and running a business will become easier, because we've now got the tools to navigate the challenges that we might face along the way. Now, if you enjoyed this video and you found some value in it, please consider liking and subscribing for more content like this. It would mean the world to me. And in the meantime, I'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers.